Negative frame. This is when you take a normally otherwise obvious positive spin and consider doing the opposite. So let me give you an example of what that is. Testimonials. If you were to go to 100 different businesses, success stories page or testimonial page, and you were to sit on 100 webinars and you saw testimonials on every one of those webinars, chances are every single testimonial would be about what? What typically would you hear in these testimonials? She's the best. She's the greatest. She's amazing. She's awesome. One of a kind. Result. Oh, incredible. It's all positive, isn't it? That's why when you see a testimonial like this, it really lands. I almost died. There was a fire in my building and I slept through it. This is a testimonial for a mattress. So they have 10,000 plus verified 5-star reviews, and one of the ones that they highlight is not a positive testimonial, it's a negative testimonial. Isn't that great? I almost died. That stops you dead in its tracks, doesn't it? Most testimonials roll off your back like water on a duck. You don't even notice them. You're testimonial blind because they're predictable, because they're all puffery and they're all this excitement and all this positivity. And I'm not saying that those are bad to do. We use a lot of those positive ones as well. But I really love the testimonials that says, I hate Jason. I hate his laugh. I think he's annoying. He talks too fast. But I can't quit giving him money because every time I do, I make more. To me, that testimonial is worth 100 Jason's the greatest in the world type of testimonials, right? So we actually want to find the testimonials that are more negative than positive because they will have more impact on our messaging of proving our point that our stuff is good. And people just go with the default. Testimonials equal positive. Let's find positive ones and let's roll them out. And so this is a great example of what are you doing in your business right now that's generally positively framed where you can consider doing the opposite. So let's take a look at this one. So this is an advertisement by Joe Sugarman. He's a legendary marketer, and Joe Sugarman really was the first guy to ever sell blue blocker sunglasses. Sold millions and millions and millions of them. I actually had the privilege of being introduced to Joe not too long ago, and we were talking back and forth about Amazon and selling blue blockers on Amazon these days and other kinds of stuff. And I told him about this ad that I thought was one of the greatest ads that I'd seen really in a long time, way back when I was a copywriter. And the ad headline says magic baloney. And then the subhead says, you'll love the way we hated the magic stat thermostat until an amazing thing happened. So the frame of an advertisement is always positive, isn't it? We're the best, we're the greatest, buy this product, here's what's so amazing about it, yada, yada, yada. But if you actually read the photo caption, it says it had no digital readout, an ugly case, and a stupid name. It almost made us sick. Yes, this is an actual real advertisement. And the lead in this advertisement goes like this. You're probably expecting our typical sales pitch, but get ready for a shock. For instead of trying to tell you what a great product the Magic Stat thermostat is, we're going to tear it apart unmercifully. When we first saw the Magic Stat, we took one look at the name and went, yuck. We took one look at the plastic case and said, how cheap looking. And when we looked for the digital readout, it had none. So before the salesman even showed us how it worked, we were totally turned off. And then the subhead underneath that says a real loser. And then it goes on and on and on. It just rips this thing apart. But it basically says it does this one thing amazingly well. And because of that, we're endorsing it. And that's a really powerful frame. So again, doing the opposite of what's normally expected, literally saying, okay, let's just do completely different. If everything is normally talked about in good, let's talk about it in bad. You know, the joke I always say to my friends is everybody describes it as half naked. Why not half clothed? And that's just my silly brain thinking about the opposites because you train it that way. And after a while, you always hear these things and you just immediately flip it to the opposite. Say, what might land stronger? What might have more impact? What might have more power? What might have more leverage? And that's the power of the negative frame. So here's another one for you. This is Never Split the Difference. Negotiating as if your life depends on it by Chris Voss. One of the greatest, probably the greatest negotiation book I think that's been written. I actually had the pleasure of sitting down and having breakfast with Chris at a Denny's one morning in Sylmar here in California. Just a incredibly smart, super sharp guy, really cool guy, former FBI hostage negotiator. And Chris's book is just a masterclass in framing, even though I don't think he realizes that. Now, Chris has sold, I think, 3 million copies of this book. And it's just amazing because when your life depends on it, when he's literally negotiating hostage situations where they might die if he doesn't do the right thing, you kind of learn what actually works, not what might work or could be worked. And so you don't realize it in those situations, but if you're really trying to be the best, you will step in and find and recover the best frames possible that most people are neglecting or not aware of. So here's one of the things that I learned from Chris that I've applied with fantastic results after reading this book. He says a lot of times negotiations stall. And then you would come back to somebody and you would email them and you would say, hey, are you still interested in doing this deal? Or are you still interested in moving forward? Or would you still like to see if we can make this work? And he says, it's easy to get a yes. Yeses are easy in negotiation. Everybody seeks out yeses. He says, seek out a no. So he sends out emails like this, and he teaches people to do the same. Do you want this deal to fail? Do you want this deal to end up going nowhere? He says, anyone can get a yes, work to get a no. And that's powerful. And, I don't know, and I don't think Chris realizes consciously why that's so effective, but it's because it's a frame flip. Instead of focusing on the positive, which is, hey, let's see if we can make this deal still work. You focus on the negative. You say, hey, is this deal dead? Have you given up on this deal? And now they have to say, no, I haven't. And then they have to explain to you why the deal is worth going forward with, as opposed to you trying to convince them that they should go forward with the deal. The idea is you start a deal in a positive mindset. You start a negotiation in a positive meeting of the minds. You attempt to get it through there. And sometimes you can do that. But if you can't, if something happens, if something stumbles or something holds you back, then flip it to the negative. Do you want this to fail? Super duper powerful, because then it makes that person stand up and say, well, maybe I don't. Maybe I should take this serious. So you give somebody a new perspective. So if you only give somebody the positive perspective, consider also giving them the negative perspective. So in sales, I teach this all the time. Don't just talk about the carrot, also talk about the stick. Now, people are more negatively motivated than positively motivated. 70% of our thoughts on a daily basis are negative, and that's a good thing because that's a survival mechanism. And so we tend to default, though, if we're subject matter experts, we tend to, or for entrepreneurs, we tend to default to the positive because we're very optimistic. You want both. Holistically speaking, you want to show people both the pain and the promise side by side. All right. So that's the negative frame. So here's some fun exercises for you. Flipping singular words around. So instead of saying, hey, if you act today, you get a $200 savings. You say, hey, if you don't act today, you pay a $200 penalty. And again, I would recommend both. If you act today, you save $200. And then later on in the same presentation, I might say, hey, there's a $200 penalty for procrastinators. Do you want to pay that or not, right? Everybody talks about their satisfaction rating or their uptime on their website if they're a hosting company or whatever. Instead of saying 99.7% satisfaction rating, you might say only 3 out of 1,000 customers hate us. And I will tell you, if you're brave enough to go out there with marketing like that to say, listen, only 3 out of 1,000 customers hate us, you will get more leverage because you're different. And people will say, wow, people really must like that person if he's willing to only talk about the people that hate them, or she's only willing to talk about the people that hate her, right? So, and I'm guilty of the next one here, and I'm considering playing with this more. We always talk about 100% money back guarantees. What about framing that into the negative? 0% money lost. When you sign up today, I can promise you with a special guarantee that you will have 0% money lost with what we call the 0% money loss guarantee. What do I mean? I mean that you risk not a single cent today because I will give you your money back and you will lose exactly $0 on this prospect. You will only gain, how much will you gain? Well, you either gain your investment back or you'll probably gain even more than that back. So that's flipping a positive to a negative. And this is always fun. They'll love you versus they won't hate you. If I say my customers are really smart, that's one thing. If I say my customers aren't stupid, that's another thing. And it's good to kind of play both of those. Again, we would do both. Your children will love you when you put this into play, and they won't hate you like children hate other parents who don't put in this to play. And again, we're dimensionalizing it. We're hitting them from both sides. Now, you don't have to be that rough. But the idea here is let's flip positive to negative. We frame things positively by default. Let's consider the opposite and let's play with that and see where it lands. Because if it doesn't work, just go back to the way things were. There's hardly any risk involved here. But if it does work, boom, you now have command of a market and you have power of messaging that nobody else has simply because you just did the opposite.